Control begins with awareness. That might sound simple, but it is one of the hardest truths to live out in real life. Think about it. How can you control a situation if you don't even realize when you're losing it? How can you remain calm if you don't recognize the exact moment your emotions are being triggered? Most of us go through conversations on autopilot, reacting instead of responding, letting our feelings drag us into places we never intended to go. But staying in control requires that first crucial step, becoming aware. Awareness is like turning on the lights in a dark room. When the lights are off, you bump into furniture, you stub your toe, you make mistakes that hurt. But when the lights are on, you see everything clearly. You see where the obstacles are, and you move differently because of it. That's what awareness does in conversations, in conflicts, in stressful moments. It gives you the clarity to choose a better response. We all have triggers. Maybe it's when someone interrupts you. Maybe it's when someone questions your intelligence or makes you feel unheard. Maybe it's that one coworker who always finds a way to make a sarcastic remark. Whatever it is, when it happens, your body reacts before your brain does. Your heart rate spikes. Your tone sharpens, your words come out faster and harsher than you intended. And in that moment, if you're not aware of what's happening, you've already lost control. But here's the powerful thing: when you start paying attention, when you notice those physical and emotional signals, you can stop the automatic chain reaction. You can catch yourself before you go down that road. That pause is everything. That awareness is what keeps you from saying something you'll regret, from escalating a situation that could have stayed calm, from letting someone else's words dictate your state of mind. Think about the last time you got into an argument. Chances are, if you replay it in your mind, you'll notice that there was a moment, just one moment, where things shifted. Maybe it was the tone of someone's voice, or a phrase they used, or the look on their face. That moment triggered you. And if you're honest, you can probably feel in your body exactly when it happened. Your chest got tight, your jaw clenched, your voice raised. That's awareness trying to tap you on the shoulder, saying, hey, right here, this is the moment where you need to slow down. Most of us ignore that tap. We charge forward. We let the adrenaline take over. But people who stay in control don't ignore it. They listen to it. They train themselves to recognize the signs of escalation in themselves before it's too late. They know that awareness is the first step to mastery. And this doesn't just apply to heated arguments. It applies to everyday life. Stress at work, pressure at home, a stranger cutting you off in traffic. Control is lost the moment you fail to notice what's happening inside of you. But when you live with awareness, you see the storm coming before it hits. You feel it rising inside you, and you prepare yourself to handle it. Here's the truth: you can't always control what people say or do. You can't stop someone from being rude or disrespectful or unfair, but you can control how much power you give them over you. And that begins by being aware of your own state. When you walk into a meeting, check in with yourself. Am I tense? Am I already frustrated? Am I ready to listen, or am I waiting to explode? That self-awareness sets the tone for everything that follows. The more you practice this, the stronger you get. At first, you'll notice your triggers after the fact. You'll think, man, I should have caught that sooner. But over time, you'll start catching them in real time. And eventually, you'll catch them before they even happen. You'll know, this person usually pushes my buttons. Let me prepare myself before I even walk into the room. That's what awareness looks like when it's built into your daily life. So if you want to stay in control, start by paying attention. Notice what makes you lose your cool. Notice what situations drain your patience. Notice what words or tones make you defensive. And when you notice them, don't judge yourself, just acknowledge them. Because that acknowledgement gives you the space to choose differently. Control doesn't come from pretending you're not angry or pretending you're not hurt. Control comes from noticing it and deciding how you're going to handle it. That's real power. That's how you stop being a slave to every emotion that comes your way. That's how you step into every situation with confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, you'll remain steady. Because control always begins with awareness. One of the greatest strengths you can develop in life is learning how to pause before you respond. That pause may only last for 2 seconds, maybe even less, but in that tiny space lies the difference between losing control and keeping it. Most people underestimate the power of a pause because it feels so small. But in reality, it's where your choice lives, it's where your clarity lives, it's where your influence over the situation is born. Most of the time, our biggest mistakes in communication don't come from what we think, they come from what we blurt out without thinking. Words that cut deeper than we intended. Reactions that escalate instead of calm. Tone that turns a conversation into an argument. And if we're honest, most of those mistakes could have been prevented with just a simple pause. Imagine how many arguments you could have avoided if you had just waited a beat before responding. Imagine how many regrets you could have saved yourself if you had taken a breath instead of firing back. The pause gives you back the driver's seat. Think about it. When someone pushes your buttons, their goal is often to pull you into an emotional reaction. If you immediately respond, they succeed. They control the pace, they control the energy, they control the direction. But when you pause, you take that control back. You show that you are not a puppet to their words. You show that you are bigger than the moment. That's why the pause is not weakness, it's a display of strength. You may have heard the saying, respond, don't react. A reaction is automatic, it's emotional, it's often regrettable. A response, on the other hand, is intentional, it's measured, it's chosen. And the only way to move from reaction to response is by creating space between stimulus and action. That's the pause. Here's the beautiful thing, the pause doesn't have to be obvious. You don't have to stand there in silence for 30 seconds while everyone stares at you. A pause can be as simple as taking a slow breath, sipping water, tilting your head as if you're considering what was just said. To the outside world, it looks like thoughtfulness. Inside, it's giving your emotions time to settle so you can respond with control instead of with chaos. Some of the most respected leaders in history were masters of the pause. They didn't rush to answer. They listened. They gave weight to their words by choosing them carefully. That pause made people lean in. It made their responses stronger, not weaker. Because the truth is, silence isn't empty, it's powerful. It tells the other person you're not rattled, you're not desperate, and you're not being baited into something you don't want to say. Think about your own life. How many times have you hit send on a text or an email in the heat of the moment and immediately regretted it? That regret is the result of a missing pause. How many times have you snapped back at someone and later thought, I wish I had handled that differently? That's another missing pause. Over and over, our biggest regrets in communication are born in the moments we didn't slow down long enough to breathe. But when you begin practicing this, everything changes. Someone criticizes you, you pause, and instead of defending yourself immediately, you respond calmly and with clarity. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you pause, and instead of letting road rage take over, you keep driving with your peace intact. Someone throws a rude comment your way, you pause, and suddenly their power over you dissolves because you refuse to let them dictate your reaction. The pause gives you perspective. It reminds you that not everything deserves your energy. It teaches you that not every attack requires a counterattack, and it proves to you that control is not found in doing more, but in doing less. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not to react at all. Like anything, the pause is a habit you build. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your body screams at you to fire back, your pride pushes you to react. But the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Soon, pausing is second nature. You don't even think about it. You just breathe, wait, and then choose your words with purpose, and people notice. They see that you're not easily provoked. They see that you carry yourself with composure. And that respect, it starts to follow you everywhere. So remember, the pause isn't silence, it's strategy, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. And every time you use it, you reinforce to yourself and to others that you are in control, not your emotions, not their words. Because control doesn't come from speed, it comes from space. And the pause is the space that protects your power. One of the biggest reasons people lose control in conversations is not because of what was said, but because of what it meant to their ego. The ego is fragile. It doesn't like to be challenged, corrected, or dismissed. It wants to be right, it wants to be respected, and it wants to be in charge. And when the ego feels threatened, it flares up, and suddenly you're not responding to the situation. You're defending your pride. That's why detaching from your ego is such a powerful step in staying in control. Think about the last argument you had. Was it really about the topic at hand, or was it about how the other person made you feel? Maybe they questioned your competence, and your ego jumped in to say, you can't let them think you're stupid. Maybe they spoke over you, and your ego screamed, don't let them disrespect you like that. Or maybe they disagreed with you, and your ego whispered, if they don't agree, you're losing. In those moments, the fight isn't about the actual problem. It's about your ego demanding to be protected. Here's the problem. When your ego is driving, you're not in control. You're reacting to preserve your image rather than responding to move things forward. And the truth is, the ego doesn't care about peace, progress, or solutions. It only cares about winning. But life isn't about winning every interaction. Sometimes the real victory is walking away calm, composed, and unshaken. Regardless of what the other person thinks, detaching from ego doesn't mean you stop valuing yourself. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you separate your sense of worth from every comment, every disagreement, and every challenge. It means you realize that someone questioning you doesn't define you. Their words don't make you less. Their opinion doesn't determine your identity. When you truly believe that, you gain freedom. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself at every turn because you know who you are and you don't need them to validate it. Picture a calm lake. If you throw a stone into it, the ripples are gentle, and eventually the water returns to stillness. Now picture a stormy sea. Every little disturbance creates chaos. The difference isn't in what's thrown, the difference is in the water itself. When your ego is fragile, you're like the stormy sea, Every small word, every slight, every disagreement stirs you up. But when you're detached from ego, you're like the calm lake. Things may touch you, but they don't shake your core. One of the strongest things you can ever do in a conversation is to let go of the need to prove yourself. Because the truth is, when you're constantly trying to prove yourself, you're giving away control. You're saying, I need your approval to feel secure. But when you detach from ego, you stand firm in yourself. You know that your value doesn't rise or fall based on what someone else says in a heated moment. That kind of security is unshakable. Now, detaching from ego doesn't happen overnight. It requires awareness and practice. It starts with catching yourself in the moment. When you feel the urge to defend, to argue, to have the last word, stop and ask, am I protecting my values, or am I just protecting my ego? If it's ego, let it go. You don't need to fight battles that don't matter. And often, the battles the ego chooses are the ones that matter the least. Here's what's ironic: when you detach from ego, people actually respect you more. Because nothing is more powerful than a person who doesn't need to prove themselves. They can handle criticism without crumbling. They can take disagreement without becoming defensive. They can listen without interrupting to shout their own opinion. That calmness makes others lean in. That composure commands attention far more than ego ever could. Every time you let your ego win, you may feel good for a moment. You had the last word, you proved your point, you defended yourself. But afterward, you often realize it didn't solve anything. It just left tension, frustration, and regret. But when you let your ego go, you walk away lighter, you walk away in control, you walk away knowing you chose peace over pride. The truth is, ego is loud, but it's not strong. It constantly shouts for attention because it's fragile. But strength is quiet. Strength doesn't need to be announced. Strength doesn't need to prove itself in every argument. Real strength is being able to hear something that challenges you, even offends you, and still remain calm because your identity is secure. That's the kind of control that changes the way people see you, and more importantly, the way you see yourself. So the next time you're in a moment where your ego wants to jump in, remember this: control is not about proving you're right. It's about proving you're steady. And when you detach from ego, you step into a power that no argument, no insult, and no criticism can take away. One of the smartest ways to stay in control during any conflict or difficult conversation is to respond with questions instead of reactions. Reactions fuel the fire, but questions redirect it. Reactions say, I'm threatened and I need to defend myself. Questions say, I'm calm, I'm steady, and I'm guiding this conversation where I want it to go. That's the difference between letting someone else set the terms of the exchange and you taking the lead. Most of us, when confronted, react. Someone criticizes us, we get defensive. Someone raises their voice, we match their tone. Someone challenges us, we push back harder. That cycle is predictable, and it always escalates tension. But if, in that very same moment, you insert a question instead, the energy shifts completely. You take the spotlight off the heat of the moment and shine it back on the other person. And what happens then? They have to think. They have to pause. They have to explain themselves. That one simple shift pulls you out of defense mode and puts you in control. Let's take an example. Imagine someone says to you, you never do anything right. The natural reaction would be to fire back. That's not true. I do plenty of things right. And now you're in a back and forth argument about who's right and who's wrong. But if instead you respond with a calm question like, what makes you say that? Can you give me an example? The tone changes instantly. Now they're forced to slow down and think about what they're actually saying. You're no longer fueling their attack, you're making them clarify it. And more often than not, people who throw out exaggerated statements can't back them up when pressed with calm questions. This strategy works because questions disarm. They show that you're listening, but not in the way your opponent expects. Most people are prepared for a fight, but they're not prepared to answer thoughtful questions. And when you ask those questions calmly, you expose exaggeration, you diffuse hostility, and you shift the balance of power back to you. It also works because questions buy you time. Instead of blurting out something you'll regret, you're creating space for yourself to think. While the other person is scrambling to answer, you're breathing, you're regaining composure, you're deciding your next step. That extra space is priceless in heated situations. Another powerful element is that questions force the other person to take ownership of their words. If someone insults you and you throw an insult back, you've both lost. But if you calmly ask, why would you say that? Now the weight of justification is on them. You don't look like the aggressor. You look like the composed one. And the more they talk, the more they often reveal about themselves rather than about you. Think about how this changes the tone in everyday situations. At work, when a coworker blames you for something, instead of saying, that wasn't me, you could ask, what part of the project you're referring to? At home, when a partner says, you never listen, instead of jumping into defense mode, you might ask, what do you need me to hear right now? These questions don't escalate. They de-escalate. They open the door to dialogue instead of pushing both sides deeper into conflict. And here's another layer: asking questions communicates confidence. When you can stay calm enough to ask instead of attack, it shows you're not afraid of the conversation. You're not rushing to protect yourself because you don't feel endangered. That calmness makes you look composed, thoughtful, and strong. People respect that. They lean in to listen because you're showing control not just in what you say, but in how you say it. Of course, the key is how you deliver the questions. If your tone is sharp or sarcastic, the question becomes another form of reaction. Oh, really? And what makes you say that? Said with a bite is just another way of arguing. But said with genuine curiosity, with calmness, it's disarming. The way you ask is just as important as the fact that you're asking. Over time, this practice becomes second nature. At first, you'll have to catch yourself. You'll feel the urge to snap back, and you'll have to deliberately replace it with a question. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Soon, your first instinct in a heated moment won't be to react, it'll be to ask. And when that happens, you've built a new habit that keeps you in control no matter the situation. So the next time someone comes at you with hostility, try this: don't feed the fire. Don't let your ego take the bait. Instead, breathe, steady yourself, and ask a question. Watch how quickly it changes the energy of the conversation. Because when you respond with questions instead of reactions, you don't just protect your peace, you protect your power. And that power is what keeps you in control when everyone else is losing theirs. One of the greatest mistakes people make in conflict is thinking that the goal is to win, to prove they were right, to have the last word, to walk away having crushed the other person's argument. But the truth is, in most situations, winning isn't winning at all. Because when you chase victory in a heated exchange, you often sacrifice the very thing that matters most: your composure. And if you lose composure, you've lost control, no matter how many points you scored in the argument. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from an argument feeling like you won, but later felt exhausted, regretful, or even embarrassed by the way you acted? Maybe you said things that cut deeper than you intended. Maybe you raised your voice to prove your point. Maybe you made it personal when it didn't need to be. Sure, you might have shut the other person down, but in the process you lost your peace. That's not real victory. That's a hollow win. Real control, real strength, comes from choosing composure over victory. Because composure lasts long after the conversation ends. People remember how you made them feel, not just what you said. And when you can walk away knowing you stayed calm, steady, and in control of yourself, that's a victory no one can take from you. The need to win is often driven by ego. It whispers, don't let them disrespect you. Don't let them think they got the upper hand. But composure says, you don't need to prove anything. Your worth isn't measured by their approval. That shift in mindset is powerful. It frees you from the trap of arguing for the sake of pride. Choosing composure doesn't mean you give up your voice. It doesn't mean you let people mistreat you or ignore your boundaries. It means you speak with calm authority instead of desperate energy. It means you know that raising your voice doesn't raise your credibility. It means you can stand firm in your truth without losing your balance. That is far more commanding than trying to dominate someone in an argument. Let's put it into perspective. Imagine two people arguing. One is red-faced, shouting, pointing fingers, trying desperately to win. The other is calm, steady, speaking clearly, even listening while the other rages. Who looks stronger? Who looks more in control? It's never the one yelling, it's always the one who chooses composure, because composure communicates confidence. It shows that you don't need chaos to prove your strength. In practical terms, this means you don't always have to have the last word. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Sometimes it's a calm, short statement like, I hear you, or let's revisit this later. Sometimes it's simply walking away with your peace intact. That's not weakness, it's wisdom, because you're recognizing that victory isn't about overpowering the other person, it's about maintaining control over yourself. The irony is, when you choose composure over victory, you often end up winning, in the eyes of others anyway. People respect the one who doesn't lose their cool. They trust the one who can stay calm under pressure. And while the other person may feel like they shouted louder or proved their point, everyone watching can see who was really in control. This also applies in relationships. How many small arguments spiral into big fights because neither person is willing to back down? Both are chasing victory, when what they really need is composure. They need someone to say, I care more about us than about being right. That moment of composure can save a relationship where victory would have destroyed it. Of course, this is easier said than done. Our emotions are strong, our pride doesn't like to let go. But this is where true discipline comes in. When you feel yourself getting heated, remind yourself, my goal is not to win this argument, my goal is to win my composure. That simple shift reframes the whole situation. Now, every choice you make is about maintaining calm, not proving dominance, and that mindset keeps you anchored. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. At first, you'll catch yourself chasing victory, and you'll have to deliberately pull back. But with time, you'll realize that the peace of composure feels better than the rush of winning. That calmness lasts, it follows you into the rest of your day, and it builds a reputation that people admire. So remember, this victory can be fleeting, but composure is lasting. Anyone can win an argument by shouting louder, but it takes real strength to hold your ground with calm confidence. When you choose composure over victory, you don't just walk away from the conversation with peace, you walk away with power. Because control isn't about beating others, it's about mastering yourself. Control isn't built in a single moment. It's not something you can just decide once and then expect to master forever. Real control is built through consistency. It's like a muscle. You don't get stronger by lifting weights one time. You get stronger by showing up day after day, building the habit until it becomes second nature. And the same is true for staying in control. You don't just do it when it's convenient. You practice it in the small, everyday situations until it becomes who you are. The mistake many people make is thinking they'll rise to the occasion when it matters most. They tell themselves, when the big confrontation happens, I'll stay calm. When the tough conversation comes, I'll keep control. But the truth is, if you don't practice control in the little moments, you won't have it in the big ones. Consistency is the training ground. It's where you condition yourself to respond differently, so that when life really tests you, your response is automatic. Think about it like this. If you only try to stay calm during an explosive argument, that's like trying to run a marathon without ever training. You might make it a mile or two, but eventually your old habits catch up with you. But if you practice composure daily, in traffic and minor disagreements, in frustrating customer service calls, then when the marathon of conflict shows up, you're ready. You've built the endurance. You've built the muscle. Consistency also matters because control is fragile if it's only occasional. Anyone can stay calm once in a while. Anyone can pause once and feel proud of themselves. But real strength is showing up with control again and again until people know you for it. Until the people around you don't even expect you to lose your cool because it's so rare to see. That reputation isn't built overnight. It's built through consistent choices one moment at a time. Now, consistency doesn't mean perfection. You're human. You're gonna slip. You're gonna have days where you react too quickly, where your ego sneaks back in, where you lose your patience. That doesn't erase your progress. What matters is that you notice it, you learn from it, and you recommit. Consistency is not about never falling. It's about always returning to the path. Every time you choose control again, you reinforce the habit, and over time those slips become fewer and fewer. The other reason consistency is so powerful is because it rewires the way you see yourself. Every time you practice control, you're proving something to yourself. I can do this. I can stay calm. I can handle this without losing my balance. And the more you prove it, the more it becomes your identity. Soon, you start saying, I'm trying to be more in control. And you start saying, I am a calm person. I am steady. I am in control. That identity becomes self-reinforcing. And that's when control truly becomes part of who you are. Consistency also impacts the people around you. When others see you respond with steadiness again and again, it changes the way they treat you. They realize you're not easily rattled, not easily baited, not someone who can be thrown off balance. That creates respect. That creates trust. People start to come to you in moments of chaos because they know you won't add to the fire. You'll bring calm to it. That kind of influence is only possible through consistent practice. It's important to remember, too, that consistency is built in the smallest of choices. It's not just about how you handle arguments. It's about how you handle delays, disappointments, and daily frustrations. Do you let a long line ruin your mood? Do you let a rude comment online throw off your whole day? Or do you use those as practice reps, as moments to strengthen your control? Those small moments are where you build the habit, and when you train yourself there, the bigger challenges don't knock you down so easily. The truth is, control isn't glamorous. It doesn't always feel good in the moment. Sometimes your ego wants to explode, and it feels like holding back is the harder choice. But over time, consistency creates peace. Consistency creates freedom. Because when you're in control, you're no longer at the mercy of every circumstance, every insult, every inconvenience. You carry your calm with you. That's a power few people have, and you can only build it by practicing it daily. So don't wait for the big test to prove you're in control. Start now with whatever's in front of you. The traffic jam, the long line, the person who interrupts you, the small conflicts at work or at home. These are your training grounds. Every time you choose control, you're stacking bricks. And brick by brick, moment by moment, you're building a foundation of strength that can't be shaken. That's what consistency gives you. That's how you become unshakable. At the end of the day, staying in control isn't about never feeling emotions. It's not about pretending you're unbothered or shutting yourself off from people. It's about mastering the way you handle yourself in the moments that matter most. It's about being aware enough to see your triggers before they own you, It's about pausing long enough to choose your response instead of reacting blindly. It's about letting go of ego so you can protect your peace instead of your pride. It's about asking questions that calm the storm instead of throwing fuel on the fire. It's about choosing composure because composure will always outlast the illusion of victory. And it's about practicing these things consistently so control becomes not just what you do, but who you are. Because here's the truth: the world doesn't need more people who shout louder, argue harder, or let their anger run wild. The world needs people who can be calm in the chaos. People who can hold their ground without losing their balance. People who know that real strength is quiet, steady, and controlled. So the next time life tests you, and it will, remember that you have a choice. You can hand your control over to the moment, or you can claim it for yourself. You can let others decide your state of mind, or you can stand firm and steady. And when you choose control, you don't just win the moment, you win yourself. And that is a victory no one can take from you.